Working as a pizza delivery guy, you're bound to run into strange situations from time to time. But this one still sticks with me, and not in a good way. I was 21 years old, working the late Friday night shift at John's Pizza. That meant I'd be closing up with the boss. It was around 9 p.m., just an hour before closing time, when the next delivery came in. A drop-off for the sorties in the next town over. The drive wasn't bad, about 15 minutes, give or take. Still, something about it rubbed me the wrong way. The GPS guided me toward an isolated road that twisted away from any familiar neighborhood lights. No signs, no traffic, just trees and the occasional flicker of my headlights bouncing off road reflectors. It looked like it led to nowhere. But I kept going. Eventually, the road opened up and revealed a house right on the water. It sat in eerie contrast to the dark woods behind it, modern, pristine, and glowing like a lighthouse. Every single window was lit up as if the whole place were burning electricity like it was free. As I pulled closer, I could hear thumping music from inside the house, loud enough to shake the glass, even with my car windows rolled up. Strangely, only 2 cars were parked out front. Just 2. And with a house that size and music that loud, I would have expected a party, at least a dozen vehicles. The layout was weird too. The front of the house faced the water, not the road. The driveway curved around to meet the front, following the shoreline. It gave me a full view of the building as I approached on foot, pizza box in hand. That's when I noticed something that struck me as off. The house, despite the wild music and strange location, was spotless. Brand new even. Not a chip in the paint, not a cracked shingle. Just gleaming perfection in the middle of nowhere. I stepped up to the front door and rang the bell a few times, figuring it might take a while to hear over the music. Then, without warning, the door flew open. 2 women stood in the entryway, one blonde, the other brunette, both barely dressed, skin glistening under the house lights, and both wearing wide, flirty smiles like they had just stepped out of a fantasy. The blonde snatched the pizza box from my hands, while the brunette handed me a $20 bill. I opened my mouth to ask where everyone else was, because, again, this place felt empty despite all the noise. But before I could get the words out, the brunette leaned in, gave me a once-over, and said I was cute. Then she asked for my number. I'll admit it, I thought I was about to get very, very lucky. I gave it to her, trying not to look too eager, and was just working up the courage to fish for an invite inside when the blonde beat me to it. She gave me a look and motioned casually for me to come in. My heart thudded. Yeah, I followed them in. But the second I stepped over the threshold, the mood shifted. A smell hit me like a slow, creeping wave. Something sour, almost rotten. Faint, but clinging to the air like mildew on fabric. I wrinkled my nose but said nothing. I was too distracted. The music blared down from somewhere upstairs, pulsing through the floorboards. But the strangest thing? There was no one else around. No chatter, no footsteps, no shadows darting through hallways. Just the 2 women and me. I should have paid more attention to that. Instead, I let them guide me up the stairs, my sneakers soft against the hardwood, that odd smell still brushing the back of my throat, and I followed, completely unaware of what I was walking into. But unfortunately, this story didn't go in the direction you might be hoping it would. I was barely on the second step, foot just lifting for the third, when it happened. A scream. A blood-curdling, throat-shredding, desperate scream for help erupted from somewhere upstairs. I froze. My head snapped upward. The sound had come from just beyond the landing, raw, human, terrified. For a second, the music seemed to dim, as if the house itself paused to listen. Then I looked at the two women. They weren't smiling anymore. Their faces had gone stiff, pale, and then the blonde turned toward the brunette, her lips moving silently, but clearly enough for me to read it. Shit. That one word hit harder than the scream. I didn't even fully process what was happening yet, not consciously. But somewhere deep in my gut, an instinct kicked in, pure, electric fear flooding my system. I bolted. I must have looked back 20 times as I sprinted for the door, tripping slightly at the threshold, legs fumbling to gain speed on the gravel outside. I didn't stop until I reached my car, hands trembling as I fought the keys into the ignition. Tires spun in loose dirt, the headlights cutting a crooked path through the darkness as I peeled around the curve of the driveway. And then I looked in the rearview mirror. I swear to you, I swear on everything, there were heads in the windows. Every single one of them. Not silhouettes, not shadows, faces. Just rows and rows of heads peering out at me as I sped away. No movement, no expressions. Just silent, watchful eyes tracking my car all the way down that long, winding driveway. I was already dialing before I hit the road again, calling the police with one hand, gripping the wheel with the other, voice shaking as I told them everything. I urged them to check that place out immediately. And they did. Less than an hour later, an investigator called me back. His voice was calm, cold even. He told me there was no one there, no signs of a party, no women, no lights. According to him, the house was brand new, recently built, vacant, still up for sale, empty. None of it surprised me at that point. It was already clear something was deeply wrong. But what happened next chilled me to my bones. That very same night, I got a text message. Just a single line. "We know where you work." That was all it took. I quit immediately. And because I'd mentioned to the police that I heard someone screaming upstairs, possibly a victim, authorities followed up with a visit to my house. They asked questions, lots of them, about the people I saw, what they looked like, what I heard, what I felt. It felt like the nightmare wasn't over, it had just changed shape. Since then, I've had my number changed. I've cut all ties. I've done everything I can to disconnect from that night. Because, more than anything, I just want peace. I want to forget the eyes in the windows, the scream, the message, and whatever was waiting for me upstairs in that brand new, empty house by the water. It was my last delivery of the night. I worked at Domino's, and this one was just a quick drop, 10 minutes away from the shop. No big deal. I was tired, sure, but I figured I'd be back, clocked out, and on my way home in less than 30 minutes. But when I got there, that changed fast. It was a small house, ordinary looking, maybe even a little dated. Nothing about it stood out at first. I parked out front, pizza box in hand, and walked up to the door. That's when I noticed the note. It was taped crookedly to the door, scrawled in quick handwriting. To Pizza Guy, Please let yourself in and leave the pizza in the upstairs bedroom. Money will be on the bed." The moment I read it, red flags exploded in my head. All of them. I rang the bell anyway, just in case someone was actually home and planning to answer. No one did. So I called my boss. I told him flat out, I don't feel safe going in there. There was a pause on the line, like he was weighing whether to humor me. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. "Just go inside. It'll be fine." I tried to reason with him. I used my so-called charm, something people have always said I have, hoping I could talk him out of it. But he wasn't having it. He was dead set on one thing. Don't bring that pizza back. Reluctantly, I tried the doorknob. It turned, unlocked. I stepped inside. The air inside was stale, thick, like it hadn't moved in hours. The house was modest in size, but what struck me was how quiet it was. Furniture filled the space, though most of it looked dated and worn. Time had left its fingerprints on everything, the corners of the carpet curling up, dust clinging to the baseboards. To my left, a dim wall nightlight, shaped like a flickering candle, offered just enough glow to see into the living room and partway up the stairs. It wasn't much, but it was just enough to guide me. I took a deep breath and headed up. No lights were on upstairs either, just another candle-shaped nightlight on the wall at the top of the steps, casting long, thin shadows down the hallway. More red flags, too many to count now. At the end of the hallway, 2 doors waited, one open, one shut. The open door led into pitch blackness, but I could make out enough of the layout to guess it was the bedroom. That's where the note had told me to leave the pizza. As you might imagine, I was shaking in my shoes. Every nerve in my body was screaming at me to run, to get out while I still could. But I kept going, inching toward the open door, step by cautious step. I reached out and gently pushed it fully open, the wood creaking slightly on its hinges. The smell in the room was odd. Not rot, not mildew, just off. My hand searched the wall for a light switch. I found one and flipped it. Nothing. The lights didn't work. The room remained cloaked in shadows, the faintest glow from the hallway doing little more than outlining vague shapes inside. My breathing quickened as I stepped forward slowly, my foot catching on something soft. It was the bed. I reached down and placed the pizza on top, then began patting around for the money. My hands swept across wrinkled fabric in the dark, the silence in the house tightening around me. And then I heard it. The faintest sound, so quiet I might have imagined it. A whisper of movement coming from somewhere outside the room. Maybe the hallway, maybe just beyond the door. I froze, lifted my head, held my breath. Then, forcing myself to move, I resumed searching, faster now, heart pounding, ears straining for any other noise. I told myself it was just some old person. Maybe they were sick. Maybe they were nervous about opening the door to a stranger. Maybe this was just awkward. I hoped to God that was all it was. But even in that moment, deep down, I knew better. I finally found the money. My hand brushed over a pair of bills tucked loosely into the folds of the blanket. It felt like 2, thin, papery, not thick enough to be 20s. I hoped they were at least 10s. Shoving them quickly into my pocket, I turned and left the room. The hallway felt colder now, still dead silent, but something felt off. That's when I noticed it. The other door, the one that had definitely been closed earlier, was now open. I froze. I stared at it, trying to remember for sure. But no, I knew. That door was shut when I first came upstairs, no doubt. My throat tightened. My palms were starting to sweat. I cleared my throat, trying to keep my voice steady, but even I could hear the shake in it as I called out, "Your pizza's on the bed. Have a great day." Nothing. No sound. No thank you. No footsteps. Not even a cough. Just silence. But that door remained open. Blackness yawning inside, like a mouth waiting to swallow me. Something tugged at my curiosity, or maybe it was guilt, some misplaced instinct to make sure everything was okay. Whatever it was, I found myself leaning toward the room, just trying to get a better view. But it was too dark, too still. I took another step. Then, cautiously, I reached my hand inside, fingers brushing the wall just inside the frame, searching for a light switch. The texture of the wallpaper was dry and cool against my skin. Then, something grabbed me, hard. An icy, vice-like grip clamped around my forearm. It was strong, too strong, and before I could react, it yanked me forward, trying to drag me into the darkness. I screamed, I thrashed, panic flooding my chest, and jabbed wildly at the arm with whatever I had in my hand. My keys, I stabbed again and again, feeling them dig into something, flesh, fabric, I couldn't tell. With a sudden wrench, the grip released. I stumbled backward, gasping, bolting down the stairs 2 steps at a time. My foot slammed against the bottom floor, and I didn't stop. I ran out the front door, barely pausing to shove it shut behind me before sprinting back to my car. I yanked the door open, jumped in, started the engine. The tires skidded for a second before gripping the pavement, and I peeled away from that house as fast as I could. Nothing chased me. No one followed. No dark shape in the rearview mirror. Just night. Cold, empty, silent night. I told my boss what happened as soon as I got back. I laid everything out, every second of it, and to his credit, he actually listened. I even managed to talk him into giving me a raise for putting me through that hell. He wasn't thrilled when I brought up the idea of calling the police, though. "Just leave it," he said. "Forget it." And truthfully, it wasn't really at the front of my mind then either. I was just so glad to be out of that house. But looking back, yeah, I probably should have reported it. At the very least, someone should have checked that place out. Still, not everything was terrible, I guess. I did walk out of it with a pay raise, from $750 to $850. So, yay me. I was never the delivery guy at Gino's Pizzeria. That wasn't my job. I worked inside, making pies, slicing garlic bread, folding boxes. But when the new guy, the one we'd jokingly nicknamed the Nuke, called out sick on what was literally his second day, I had to step up and cover deliveries for the night. Lucky me. It was a Tuesday and business was slow. Not a bad night to be on the road, honestly. Just a few orders here and there, quiet streets, nothing too crazy. I figured I'd survive. Still, I wasn't exactly thrilled about it. My car at the time was a manual '98 Ford Mustang, a total gas guzzler, and not something I liked driving around town unless I had to. Definitely not ideal for zipping back and forth with pizza boxes in the passenger seat. In the first 3 hours, I made 3 normal deliveries. No weirdos, no problems. The kind of boring you're thankful for. We closed at 9 on weeknights, so I figured I had maybe 1, maybe 2 more deliveries before wrapping up. Easy night. Then the phone rang. I picked it up, and before she even finished her first sentence, I knew this was going to be one of those calls. The voice on the other end? She sounded like the walking definition of a meth head. Raspy, shaky, uncertain. She stuttered, paused too long, forgot what she was saying mid-sentence. At one point, I swear there was a 10-second gap of dead air between her muttering, "Can I just get a," and finishing with, "regular pizza." It was a struggle, like a real effort just to get a full sentence out of her. And don't even get me started on the address. That was another whole ordeal. It sounded like she didn't even know it herself. I could hear her asking someone else in the background, whispering things I couldn't quite catch. Eventually, she slurred the address out to me, and before I could confirm the total or give her the ETA, she hung up. Just like that. Click. I stared at the phone for a second, then turned to our chef. His name was actually Mario. Yeah, I know, kind of cliche for a guy running a pizzeria, but that was his real name. I told him, 1 regular. He just nodded. 10 minutes later, pizza boxed and steaming in the warmer bag, I was in the Mustang and on my way. Did I feel weird about it? Yeah. Was I expecting something off? Definitely. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what was waiting at that house. Out here, we live in the middle of absolute nowhere. And in a town like that, every delivery means a longer drive, which usually means a better tip. I'd learned to tolerate the long, winding roads and backwoods detours. Money's money. This one took me about 10 minutes. The GPS led me off the main road, down a narrow gravel path that cut deep through thick woods. Darkness swallowed the road in both directions. Every now and then, I passed a scattered trailer home, half lit with rusting siding and patchy yards. There were no streetlights, just the dull glow of my headlights catching glimpses of peeling mailboxes and bent metal fencing. Eventually, I reached the address. It was a trailer home, just like the others. No lights were on inside, but from where I parked, I could see the orange flicker of firelight dancing from somewhere behind the home. I also heard yelling, a woman's voice, sharp and heated, shouting at someone out back. A weird start, but I figured it wasn't my business. I stepped out of the car and gently closed the passenger side door after grabbing the pizza. Just as I did, something caught my eye. One of the curtains twitched. Quick, subtle, but clear enough to know someone was watching me. I paused, uncertain now. Should I knock on the front door or head around back where the voices were coming from? I hesitated. The fire crackled louder. I could hear more than one person back there now, low voices, movement. I decided to go around. As I turned the corner and stepped into view, I called out a quick greeting, just a friendly, "Hey, pizza delivery," trying to keep my tone light. They spun around fast, faster than I expected, like they'd been caught. And when I got a look at them under the glow of the fire, I nearly took a step back. They were filthy. The woman's clothes were ragged and stained, her hair matted and tangled. The man, her husband, I assumed, looked no better. Greasy tank top, wild eyes, twitchy movements. Their faces were sunken, sallow. They looked exactly like what you'd picture when you hear the words trailer park meth heads. The woman stared at me like I wasn't supposed to be there. Then she turned to the man and snapped, "What's he doing here?" The man glared at her, his mouth tight, and shot back, "You're the one who gave him the address." I just stood there, trying to act calm, but my gut had already turned to ice. There was something off about the way they were standing. They were too close together, like they were trying to block my view, hide something behind them. And frankly, I didn't want to know what it was. Still holding the pizza box, I asked, "You want me to go around front?" They didn't answer right away. Instead, they leaned in close to each other and started whispering. The sound of their hushed conversation, mixed with the firelight, made the whole scene feel unreal, like something out of a bad dream you can't shake off. Then the woman turned to me, her expression flat and unreadable, and said, "Wait here, I'll go get the money." Her finger pointed right at me, as if I'd disappear if I moved even an inch. So I stood there, in the dark, fire crackling behind them, mosquitoes buzzing in the trees, and every nerve in my body telling me something was wrong, very wrong. She disappeared inside, and for the next 2 minutes I stood there, alone, awkwardly rooted in place by the fire's glow. The only sounds were the soft crackle of burning wood and the distant chirp of night insects, and the silence of the man staring at me. He didn't move, didn't blink, just kept those sunken eyes locked on me. I kept trying not to look back at him, but I could feel it. That quiet, dead stare boring into me like a drill. Time felt syrup thick, stretching with every second she was gone. Then, finally, the trailer door creaked open. The woman stepped back out, casually strolling to the man's side again, as if none of this was weird. She handed him a crumpled stack of bills and told him to count it. But then she leaned in. She whispered something to him, quiet, quick, just out of earshot. That was it for me. My heart was now beating at full sprint. Something was wrong, very wrong. I wasn't just nervous anymore. I was scared. The kind of scared where your brain starts scanning every possible escape route, every bad outcome, every mistake you've made leading up to this exact second. The man started counting the bills, slowly, painfully slowly. 5, 10. That's all he said. Then silence again. I kept my eyes locked on the woman this time. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring into the woods, behind me, her gaze fixed, cold. And then she nodded. A single, deliberate nod towards something behind me. My blood turned to ice. I spun around just in time to see a huge figure emerging from the tree line. A man, massive, heavy-footed, and unmistakably carrying an axe in both hands. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just moved. With a yell, I hurled the pizza box straight at him, half from panic, half from pure instinct. The box hit him square in the chest, and to my disbelief, he stopped. Maybe surprised, maybe just confused. But he didn't chase me. I didn't wait to find out why. I ran. I tore through the woods and gravel like my life depended on it, because it probably did. I reached the car, flung open the door, and peeled off down the road without ever looking back. I made it home, somehow, in one piece. I didn't go back to the shop that night. When Mario, the chef, texted me later to ask where I went, I told him everything, the whole thing, word for word. All he replied was, "Holy shit." That was it. No advice, no call, just 2 words. And honestly, that was enough. I'm just glad that was the only night I ever had to deliver. It was the first and last. So listen, if you live in the suburbs or the city, sure, be a pizza guy. Enjoy the tips. But if you live out in the middle of nowhere, maybe try the supermarket instead.